The future drives the present. The reason you haven't been able to start yet, the reason you've been stuck in the same place for years, it's not because your willpower is weak, but because you've already decided in your mind, this is as far as I can go, setting your future before you even begin. Many people are mistaken. They think things will change if they learn more, and believe they'll be able to start once they're more prepared. So they read books, watch videos, and make plans. But strangely enough, even after months and years pass, the pace of their life barely changes at all. You've probably thought this at least once. Why does my life stay the same when I'm working so hard? Hello, this is Mind Design Lab. Today, I want to talk about the criteria that actually change the direction of your life, not the amount of effort you put in. I hope this becomes a time when we clearly examine one principle that you already know, but haven't fully understood. If you watch until the end, you'll gain a clearer understanding of why so much self-development hasn't significantly changed your reality, and why some people suddenly start to see their trajectory shift at a certain point. Most people think the past creates the present. That's not wrong. But what actually drives life isn't the past. It's what future you believe is inevitable. People only act up to the level they believe they can reach. So more often than stopping because they lack ability, people stop because they've set their own potential too low. The problem is that this process happens far too quietly. People don't give up suddenly one day. They postpone once today, give up once tomorrow, and as they repeat these small choices, at some point, the thought, "this is just who I am," becomes. And that thought then determines the next choice. This is why so many people repeat nearly the same reality for years. Today we're going to start from this point. It's not about effort, it's about what future you're using as your standard for living. People usually think the present creates the future, so they believe that if they work harder now, they'll eventually reach the life they want. Of course, effort is important, but there's a clear difference that effort alone cannot explain. Even when spending the same amount of time doing similar things, some people see opportunities continuously increase, while others remain in nearly the same position even after a long time. This difference doesn't start with the quantity of action. It starts with the criteria that determine action. The human brain responds more strongly to the anticipated future than to present reality. Neuroscience research has repeatedly confirmed that people's behavioral decisions are influenced more by what results they believe are waiting ahead than by current conditions. When we start something, what our mind calculates first isn't, "Can I do this now?" but rather, "Does this feel possible for me?" When something doesn't feel possible, our actions naturally slow down. When we believe something is possible, our energy concentrates there. This principle has been repeatedly emphasized in various success philosophies for a long time. Some call it mental imagery, others call it the power of belief, and still others call it the direction of intention. The expressions differ, but the core message is the same. People act within the range of reality they believe they will reach. That's why many people learn new methods, but their lives don't change. Not because the method is wrong, but because they don't believe that method connects to their future. So the intensity of their actions doesn't change. This is why you understand with your head, but your body doesn't move. It's not that your willpower is lacking. It's because you've already invisibly drawn a line in your mind, saying, "That's too difficult for me." Conversely, some people don't necessarily know more information, yet at some point, their pace of action visibly accelerates. The reason isn't that their ability suddenly improved. It's because the standard of the future they believe they can reach has changed. The moment they feel their range of possibility has expanded, people naturally begin executing choices they previously hesitated on. From this point, people around them say things like they suddenly got lucky or opportunities are pouring in, but in reality, the direction of their actions changed first. And those actions created new connections and opportunities in most cases. Ultimately, the key to changing life's pace isn't what you're doing now, but what future you're accepting as natural. When your future standard is low, your range of action narrows. When your future standard rises, even the same person begins making completely different choices. And this repetition of choices creates the visible difference in reality over time. There's a story of one entrepreneur. At first, he was an ordinary salesperson with no special background. He always said the same thing, "Someday I should start my own business." But for several years, he never started anything. The reason was simple. He thought he wasn't sufficiently prepared to run a business. Then one day he attended a lecture by a CEO he respected. In that lecture, this was said: "No one has ever started after their preparation was complete. Preparation begins after you start." This sentence wasn't any special theory, but it became the trigger that changed his decision-making criteria. He abandoned the idea of starting after becoming perfect and began meeting customers directly, even if on a small scale. For the first few months, there were almost no results. But during that process, experience accumulated and his network of people expanded, and opportunities that weren't visible before began to connect. A few years later, he stood in a completely different position from the colleagues who worked at the same company. The difference wasn't ability, it was how he determined the timing to start. Here's another case: the story of an office worker who started investing. For a long time, he thought, "I'll invest once I have more money." So he only kept studying and never actually started anything. Then he heard advice to try experiencing it with even a small amount, and he started investing with a very small sum. At first, there was almost no profit, but his sense for reading the market and his ability to interpret information gradually began to change. After a few years, even while receiving the same salary, the flow of his assets had completely transformed. The difference wasn't that he knew more information. It was the point when he stopped thinking, "I'm not ready yet." Similar stories repeat in the self-development field too. Some people read dozens of books, but their lives don't change much, while others change their patterns of behavior, triggered by a single sentence, and move in a completely different direction within a few years. The difference isn't how much they knew. It's when they started expanding the range of future they allowed themselves. What makes these cases special isn't that they're success stories. It's because the same thing keeps happening in the reality we see every day. Even while working at the same company and living in the same environment, the difference between people who end up in different positions after a few years mostly doesn't start from a difference in ability. It starts from when their decision-making criteria changed. Most people think of life changing as a grand event. They believe that one day a big opportunity will appear, and by seizing that opportunity, their life will change. But the way reality actually moves is much simpler and simultaneously much more cold-hearted. Life's direction is determined not by special moments, but by the criteria of repeated choices. People make countless decisions every day, but most of them aren't choices made after deep consideration. Choices are automatically made within the invisible standards of "this is good enough" or "this is my level" that have been formed throughout life so far. So despite making efforts, when you look back after a few years, you're often still in a similar position, not because the quantity of action was insufficient, but because the range of choices itself hasn't changed much. When some people see the same opportunity, they pass it by thinking, "I'm not ready yet." Another person tries it even if they're not perfect. In many cases, the two people's abilities weren't vastly different from the start. The difference begins with how far they feel they can go. People who see their range of possibility broadly have more attempts, and the accumulation of those attempts ultimately creates the difference in results. This is also why the process of life-changing appears slow. Just because decision-making criteria changed doesn't mean visible results appear immediately. At first, it looks like almost nothing is happening. So many people think there's really no difference after all and return to their old ways. But when choices continue to repeat with changed criteria, the flow starts to shift at some point. At that time, people around them see it as a sudden change. But in reality, it's just the direction of long accumulated choices becoming visible. In the end, what matters isn't knowing more information. It's what criteria you're using to make today's choices. If the criteria remain the same, even if the amount of effort increases, the results are likely not very different from before. Conversely, if the criteria change, even if you spend the same day, the direction of choices changes, and that repetition creates a completely different reality over time. Jim Carrey's story is very famous, but many people don't properly see the core of this anecdote. During his days as an unknown comedian, he had almost no money in his bank account and kept getting rejected at auditions. At that time, he wrote himself a check and put it in his wallet for acting services rendered $10 million, and he dated it several years into the future. Many people understand this story only as a simple case of positive thinking, but the important part is the behavioral change that happened afterward. After writing that check, he began changing his decision-making criteria. Whether it was a small gig or a minor audition role, he started moving with the standard of, I'm someone who will eventually do this big. And in that process, he continued choosing challenges he hadn't attempted before. A few years later, he became an actor receiving more than that amount in fees. He didn't succeed because he imagined the future. The flow changed because he changed his actions based on that future. Another example repeatedly mentioned in Think and Grow Rich is automotive industrialist Henry Ford. When he pushed for mass production of automobiles, people around him kept saying it's technically impossible because for the technology level of that time, it was too difficult a goal. But he didn't lower his goal. He first established the premise that a method must exist and kept gathering research and personnel according to that standard. Eventually, he completed the moving assembly line system, transforming the structure of the automotive industry itself. The core of this case, too, wasn't ability. It was where he placed the standard of possibility. Similar cases can easily be found domestically as well. Many entrepreneurs who first started online shopping malls experience a period when not even 1 or 2 orders come in per day. At this point, most people stop saying it's too hard after all. But some people continue for years with the same standard, improving products and experimenting with marketing. As time passes, the gap between the two people widens significantly. It's not that there was a big ability difference when they first started. It was different at what point they recognized themselves as a person. Who does this work? The commonality of these cases is simple. They didn't move because the future was guaranteed. They first expanded the range of future they could reach and began repeating choices that matched that standard. That repetition of choices eventually appeared to those around them as suddenly starting to do well. If you've understood everything so far, there's one remaining question. So what should I change now? Many people make a mistake again here. They set grand goals, create perfect plans, and try to become a completely different person from the start. This approach usually doesn't last long. The reason is simple. It's because the decision-making criteria haven't changed first, before trying to change actions. The first thing to do is not to set goals, but to establish criteria. You need to start deciding what choices to make in the future, not based on circumstances, but based on the criterion. What direction am I a person who goes in? If you apply this criterion even once to a small choice, you'll realize how many decisions you've been leaving to your environment. The second thing is to start with very small execution right away. Most people stop the moment they feel more preparation is needed. But when a sense actually develops isn't after studying ends, but after starting action. If you try to start in a perfectly prepared state, the starting point keeps getting pushed back. The difference between someone who starts small and someone who waits for preparation to finish grows larger as time passes. The third thing is to consciously check the repetition of choices. People make countless decisions during a day but don't remember most of them. So it feels like there's no change. At the end of the day, check just one thing among today's choices. Was there a choice that broadened your future direction? When this process repeats, the decision-making criteria gradually start operating automatically. The last important thing is not to judge speed impatiently. Even if decision-making criteria change, at first almost no change is visible. So many people return to their old ways again. But when actions continue repeating with maintained criteria, the flow starts to change at some point. That change appears to come suddenly, but in reality, it's the result of choices accumulated over a long time. What you can change right now isn't your environment or your conditions. It's what criteria you'll use to make choices today. From the moment this one thing changes, even if you spend the same day, the direction of your life slowly begins to shift. Most people think life will suddenly change at some moment. They believe that when a better opportunity comes and they become more prepared, a different life will begin from that point. But when you observe reality for a long time, you see a completely different flow. Life doesn't change suddenly one day. It's just that the direction of choices that have been repeating for a long time starts to become visible at a certain point. Many people live diligently for years yet wonder why there's no big change. But when you look coldly, even if the quantity of action increased, in many cases, the decision-making criteria haven't changed much. If you move harder in the same direction, speed may increase, but the destination doesn't change much. Today's core message is simple. What changes reality isn't grand determination. It's what future you're using as the standard for today's choices. If this criterion doesn't change, even if you learn new methods, actions won't be maintained long. Conversely, if the criterion changes, even if small actions repeat, their direction changes, and the flow of reality begins to shift together over time. After watching this video, you don't need to make grand plans. Just once today, try choosing with a different criterion than before. Even if it's a very small choice, if the direction changes, that repetition will ultimately create different results than before. If this video has become an opportunity for you to look back on your past choices, please share it with people who are contemplating similar changes. And if you want to continue hearing stories together about the criteria and actions that change life's flow, please subscribe to the channel now and set notifications. Not someday, the choices you start today begin to determine your future reality. This is Mind Design Lab. Thank you.